Welcome to the Workology podcast, where we discuss the science and art of the workplace, gain powerful insights, resources, and perspectives on the industries of human resources and recruiting. Join your host, Jessica Miller-Merrill, chief blogger at bloggingforjobs.com, for an in-depth and no-holds-barred look into the future of our most powerful business asset, the employee. And now, welcome your host, Jessica, with this podcast episode of Workology.
Wearable devices are everywhere. We're wearing them with our Google Glass, using them to monitor our fitness and calorie count. One of the newest wearables is a camera that can be pinned on your shirt or placed on a desk. Photos can be taken and controlled using your mobile device. The wearable market is on pace to be a $5.8 billion, that's billion folks, dollar industry by 2018. But how does that fit into the workplace? That's what we're here to find out today. Welcome to the Workology podcast. It's great to have you on our new podcast as part of the Blogging for Jobs family. Today we'll be tackling the topic of wearables at work, specifically the legal side of wearable technology. My guest today is Casey Sipe. He's an attorney and also a regular contributor on Blogging for Jobs who specializes in employment law. He's just an all-around great guy and who happens to be an attorney. Welcome to the Workology podcast, Casey.
Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us more about Casey Sipe.
I'm an attorney. Like you said, I specialize in employment law, and I do a few other things as well, but employment law is my main area of expertise, I guess. And I'm from Pennsylvania, where it's currently snowing up a storm.
It feels like keeps snowing up a storm all over. You guys have gotten a ton of snow. We even got snow here in Oklahoma this week, actually, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, I'm so ready for spring to come.
It can't happen. It can happen soon enough. Well, let's talk a little bit about today's topic, which is wearable tech. But we're not just focusing on wearable tech in general. Like, I like that geeky stuff, and I know you do too. But we want to talk about the legal aspects of wearable tech. What can we do and what can't we do, and what should we be thinking about when it comes to privacy and this new technology that eventually we won't even be able to see. Google recently filed a patent for contacts that have cameras and the ability to track your blood pressure and different, your temperature. So this is the direction that we're going. I mean, with Google Glass right now, you can see them, right? Fitbits you can see, but eventually they'll be invisible to the eye. And that's definitely something I think that employers should be thinking about as they go about building their strategies and thinking about how they're engaging their employees. What do you think about wearable tech, Casey? What's striking you right now?
Well, I mean, I'm like you said, I'm really into this sort of thing. I'm a huge technophile, so anytime anything new and gadgety comes out, I really want to have it. Right now, I'm along with, I'm sure, millions of others, anxiously awaiting the Apple Watch, which should be fully unveiled and shipping soon, I hope. But I mean, like I said, I'm a huge fan. I know a lot of people have Fitbits or the Jawbone Up. I thought Google Glass was cool, although, I'm not entirely certain of the its use. And of course, like I said, with the Apple Watch, smartwatches, are kind of everywhere.
So I have a piece of wearable tech on right now. I have also a fitness tracker that we use every day, and it connects directly to my mobile phone. I wanted to ask you specifically because I feel like when social media kind of got big and then mobile phones were in the workplace, people immediately wanted to ban the use of mobile devices at the workplace. Do you think, or can employers ban this wearable tech? Like they can ban the use of the smartwatch at work?
I think you could, but just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. Certainly, at least not with a blanket ban. I don't really think there's a lot of danger right now in allowing employees to use things like fitness bands. I mean, especially with all the evidence out there to support the fact that healthier employees tend to be happier and more productive. On the other hand, devices that have a possibility of making fellow employees uncomfortable, like Google Glass or the camera that you were talking about that you can attach to yourself, that might be something worth looking into banning, because I don't think anybody wants to feel like their privacy is being invaded at work more than I mean, more than it really is already. After all, your employer can look at your web history and your emails and everything else, but having your fellow employees snapping pictures of you without your knowledge is probably going to freak some people out.
Agreed, agreed. How do you think maybe somebody could use wearable tech in the workplace, being a tech geek yourself?
Sure. I think there are a lot of jobs out there or fields where wearable tech is more appropriate than others. I know that there was a lot of talk initially with Google Glass that it would be great for doctors because they'll be able to maybe pull things up while they're operating or things like that, or assist with diagnosing patients. And I think that would be a great use. And I've read things about certain wearable wristbands or armbands that are being used in warehouses to allow the workers to be more efficient because they don't have to carry around a clipboard. It basically tracks where they're going, where they're picking up a box from, and it gets automatically checked off. And it can, maybe route them to the right location to help them find what they're looking for, help to make sure that quotas are being met, and maybe prod an employee if they're not meeting their quota. But I'm also sure that you've probably heard about. I think it's by Hitachi. It's basically in the shape of a badge that employees would wear, and inside it has these infrared sensors, an accelerometer, a microphone, and wireless communications, and it allows the employer to track literally everything that the employee is doing, including who they're talking to, where they're located, even if they're sitting or standing. Of course, they're marketing as a way to increase productivity. I think it'll do more to increase paranoia.
I feel like sometimes those technologies are just kind of fueling the micromanagement sort of mindset. When a couple of years ago, when we kind of were starting to look at virtual workforce as a thing that people were really considering, a lot of companies in the workplace, like proficiency space or productivity space, were providing a technology that would be able to monitor your productivity on your computer. What sites were you going to, how are you spending your time, sort of as a babysitter, similar to what you're describing.
I'm of the opinion that whenever technology comes out, somebody is going to quickly develop technology to foil it. If you use the DRM that's attached to videos and music and applications for computers, I mean, people have been almost as soon as they come out, people are finding ways around them, and then that's how, you know, media piracy is still going on. It's questionable how effective that's going to be and for how long. The other thing, there are certain questions about how effective it's really going to be. I know one of the things that it's supposed to track is not only who you're talking to, but how well you're talking to others. Which, I mean, it seems like an odd thing to qualify, but I think that you could be passionately speaking and be passionately speaking something stupid. So I don't necessarily think that you're going to get a lot of value out of tracking that sort of thing. And of course, there are legal concerns too. Um, Off the top of my head, uh, especially with the NLRB and its current iteration being more than a little activist, they might find that listening in on your employees is going to chill their ability to engage in protected concerted activity, like discussing their workplace conditions or salaries or things like that. So, you know, while I understand the desire to use something like that, I think it actually is going to cause more problems than it's going to solve.
There's an interesting piece of new HR tech that I recently talked to that's actually UK based. And I didn't mention this when we were kind of prepping for the podcast, but it's called TempBuddy. And TempBuddy, TEMP Buddy. And they're good guys out of the UK. And basically they're utilizing mobile technology, but they're looking at geolocation. They're using video and information to help find temporary workers. So one of the benefits that they sell, and I actually think there's some value with it, is that when you're looking for contingent workers or these independent freelancers, you can use the mobile device to try to connect with people to arrive at, one destination maybe for a temporary secretary job, and make sure that that person is who they say they are. They actually have software that makes sure that you are the person. So you take a picture or you use video to make sure that you are the person that's supposed to come to the job site to do the work.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I know at one point I was doing some temp legal work, and the website that I was using, and of course now I can't remember which one it was, but they had essentially a voice verification system where you filled out your profile and everything, but before you could go active, you actually had to talk to somebody on the phone and answer questions to prove you were who you say you were.
One of the things that they were selling or talking about their value of the product, the TempBuddy product, was the geolocation piece. So they knew when you arrived to work and when you left.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, and that sort of makes me think too. And I actually think you may have mentioned it either in a blog post or something like that. Maybe it was just on Facebook. You shared an article, but um, there's a company who's selling a service to help you basically track when your employees are checking in to work. So to track their hours basically. And I think there's a lot of benefit there in that, you are going to know, are your employees working the 40 hours? Are they going over? Do you have to pay overtime? Now, of course, knowledge can sometimes come with a penalty. So even if you have a policy that forbids employees from working more than 40 hours a week or into overtime, depending on what state you're in, because I think California, it's 8 hours a day rather than the 40-hour week. But if you are tracking this and you know it, even if you have a policy that says that they're not allowed to work overtime, you still have to pay them. There was actually a recent case about that. So, sometimes knowledge can be a little harmful, but, you know, in the long run, I think that the idea of knowing exactly when your employees are clocking in and out without necessarily depending on their veracity with regard to when they are actually clocking in and out can be really helpful, and it would help you to avoid the I think the most common one, which is having somebody else essentially punch you in if you're going to be late. So I think there's definitely some value there as long as it's handled well.
Time clock fraud is definitely something that occurs quite frequently, and having worked in retail HR, experienced it quite often, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all.
How else do you maybe envision wearable tech being used in the workplace?
I think those are probably the big areas that I think about. I mean, there are certainly some dangers that come with wearable tech. I kind of have some nightmares about potential problems that could come from wearable devices, especially with cameras, and especially ones that don't require any sort of overt auditory command or action by the user. I know there was an article I read at one point that was talking about how they managed to jailbreak the Google Glass operating system and fix it so that you didn't have to say, "Okay, Glass, take a picture," or touch the glass to take a picture. You could just wink and take a picture. Um, so being able to take photos of somebody without their knowledge is just a minefield of potential complaints and lawsuits. I mean, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking, sexual harassment for trying or maybe succeeding at taking photos, down an employee's shirt or in the restroom. Of course, privacy issues over taking somebody else's picture, especially if they end up, posting it online or something like that. Maybe trade secret issues where it looks like the employee is simply paging through some sort of confidential document, like a customer list, but they're actually taking photos that they're going to use. So, I mean, there's definitely problems, and that's why I think maybe, as I said before, a policy where you're banning wearable tech that has a camera involved might be in your best interest.
So I'm a Google Glass hole. Although when you work from home, they're not as effective. I would say at productivity. Like they're great for shooting video, like hands-free video. If Riley's doing something new, and I don't necessarily want to reach for my phone, but I can say that I have worn my Google Glass in the bathroom because they're attached to your face, like a pair of glasses, and you walk in and they're on your face, so you don't necessarily think. But imagine if it is a unisex bathroom, or you are dealing with maybe a transgender employee that is also wearing their Google Glass. It just can open up a lot of other situations that aren't always so black and white.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's interesting in the abstract, the different issues that could arise because of this, and so it's interesting for me to think about it, but it's not going to be so interesting for an employer who gets slapped with a lawsuit, and then has to go through defending it and paying attorney's fees and all that sort of thing. So, in this case, it might be a better safe than sorry sort of situation.
Well, let's talk about some different types of wearable tech, and particularly wearable tech. We mentioned the iWatch. I think that it often serves as an extension to your phone, and one of the benefits for the iWatch and these watch wearable pieces is that it allows for you to be hopefully singularly focused. One of my challenges with my phone is that I'm getting a bazillion updates. So I've got my weather alert, I have my text messages, I have my Facebook, I have my Twitter, I have my email. Everything is pinging me the new update to my favorite game. They're push notifications telling me all about them. But then I end up missing maybe an important email or important message from maybe a family member or friend. So the value add for an iWatch for me is that I can help control the distractions at work, and I can leave my device, my mobile phone, in the office and maybe just take my watch with me to the boardroom or a meeting, and then I am able to prioritize what messages come to my attention.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean that's how I would envision using it. And of course I've been making the case to my wife for this for several months now. But it's to me it's a way to cut down on the distractions, because you're right. I get tons of notifications all the time. I mean, Twitter and Facebook and email and all kinds of things like that. So if I can set it up so that my watch is occasionally buzzing me with the important stuff, then I think it'll be really helpful. Um, it is a double-edged sword, though. If you're not, I guess maybe the word is mature enough to set it up in a way that's actually going to be helpful. If you have an employee who's literally getting pinged every 5 minutes on their watch, I mean, maybe that decreases their productivity. I don't really know, but that's certainly something to think about. Not to come off as the constant naysayer, but that's sort of one of the things that I've thought about with it.
I think that for me, like a situation like that, which I'm sure is going to happen, right, is that maybe the best use case for an employer, the best workaround is to provide productivity training, or maybe some sort of lunch and learn that says, okay, how to increase your proficiency or your productivity in the workplace using maybe your mobile device or different tech tools. And then you can casually mention, oh, here's how you prioritize your work.
I think that's a great idea. And I mean, I've seen and written handbook policies that, don't necessarily ban the use of smartphones and that sort of thing in the workplace. Because I think if you're banning the use of smartphones in the workplace, unless it's a national security issue or something like that, or an actual safety issue, I mean, I think you're crazy, because it's just not going to work. People are going to use them anyway. But I've drafted policies where you're basically asking the employees to use their best judgment. Don't be on your smartphone all the time. We understand that you're going to use your smartphone occasionally, and I think, and I'm pretty sure it was Eric Meyer made a big deal of this, that 20 minutes of social media time a day actually increases employee productivity and that sort of thing. So there are ways to handle this with a measured response. I think anytime something new happens, like you said about smartphones, people freaked out in the beginning about using them at work. I think it's a good idea to sort of remain calm, realize the sky is not falling with regard to wearable tech, and that there is a way to deal with it that's not just an outright complete ban on everything.
Well, let's take a little bit of a reset. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and you're listening to the Workology podcast powered by Blogging for Jobs. Today's topic is encountering wearables at work, a legal update with my guest, Casey Sipe. You can connect with Casey on Twitter at CLS Employer Law. And so he's active on the Twitters there.
Very active.
Do you think a simple policy is enough to enforce the use of wearable tech in the workplace? Why or why not? What are you advising employers and HR professionals out there?
At this point, with the wearables that are currently on the market, I think that a simple policy should be enough. You can kind of decide, and like I said, if you maybe you want to draw the line at something with a camera. You don't want the camera in the workplace. It's going to make people feel uncomfortable. It's going to be hard for me to stand there and surreptitiously take a photo of somebody with my iPhone 6 because it's enormous. But if I've got the little camera on my lapel, people are probably going to be staring at the bow tie rather than the lapel, and I can get a picture. So given that, I think a policy is probably enough. Like you mentioned, Google just patented the contact lens. I mean, I think that's certainly where we're getting, or where we're going. They're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point where it's not going to be as easy to deal with that. And I mean, at this point, I don't really know how we're going to deal with somebody who may or may not be wearing a contact lens that can take photos and that sort of thing. It's exciting and scary at the same time.
I envision us clocking into our workplaces with retinal scanners that are looking for those contact lenses.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I'm generally excited about the way that all of this is going, and while my the legal thinking part of my brain, like I said, sometimes has nightmares about this kind of stuff. The technophile part of me is just super super excited about everything that's coming, and all the cool things that we're going to be able to do. I mean, the whole idea, like, I'll admit, one of the big things about the Apple Watch that's got me excited is I'm going to feel like Dick Tracy. I can make a phone call with my watch. That is just amazing.
And watches will be cool again.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a fan of wearable tech, hence why we're talking with Casey on the topic here. And I'm excited that I get to try the camera that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. It's called the Narrative Clip. And basically, I'll be demoing it and testing out at South by Southwest in Austin in a couple weeks. It's an important part of my life, wearable tech, but this nice narrative clip, basically you clip it to, I was thinking I was clip it to my dog, or your shirt, or your purse, or whatever, and you can use your mobile device to then snap pictures. I'm assuming that it's Bluetooth oriented. So similar to I have a Livescribe pen that I use to take notes when I'm traveling or when I'm on the phone with folks. It takes that piece of wearable device and then translates it or beams it over to your mobile device. So I'm excited to demo that. I think that wearable tech is really important. It's an important part of my life, and these new products that are all coming on the market. I'm also a fan of this cool new wristband, and we'll link to it. It's called the Philip, and it allows you to track your child. So basically you put a wristband, it kind of looks like a bracelet, and then if your child goes out a vicinity or an area, it will alert you. And then the child has a way to call you directly, and it records the audio, or it can even alert the police. Crazy. In your article that you have written, it's called Wary of Wearable Tech, which we will link to in the transcript of this podcast. You talk more about security risk and privacy. Do you think you can elaborate more about what security risks maybe wearables currently pose for employers?
Sure. And I feel like I keep harping on the whole camera issue, but I think that's really where the security risk comes up, because I just envision an employee sitting at their desk, looking at their computer or a document, and it just looks like they're doing their job. And instead, they're using whatever wearable camera they have to surreptitiously take pictures of confidential information. So, I mean, it could be as simple as an employee taking photos of a customer list or a special pricing list, all the way up to somebody trying to take pictures of, say, Coca-Cola's secret formula. So it really does have some wide-ranging security concerns, or poses some wide-ranging security concerns, I should say.
I agree, and I mentioned my Livescribe, my pen. It actually does audio recording as well. So I can record audio, and nobody is aware, and it looks like a pen, a regular pen that I'm writing in a notebook.
Exactly, and so while I certainly wouldn't want my clients to start going around and checking pens on their employees' desks or things like that, or patting people down to make sure that they don't have wearable cameras on them. At the very least, they should be aware that this sort of technology exists and have a policy in place to take care of it. It's often said that the law has a difficult time keeping up with technology, and I agree with that. So often our laws are not written to keep up with new technological advances, and judges unfortunately don't seem to keep up that great either. But those of us in the trenches are doing what we can to stay savvy and up to date, and try to head off these problems before they arise. Because generally my goal is, let's try and think of what the next problem is going to be, so that I can help prevent it. I don't want my clients to be the test case by the EEOC or the NLRB on, I don't want them to become precedent.
That's a good point. And it's only a couple years ago that text messaging was found by the Supreme Court to be a form of electronic messaging.
Right. Yeah, it's I know that the Supreme Court takes a lot of stick for not necessarily understanding technology. I can't remember which one of the justices tried to compare a mobile phone to a beeper at one point or something along those lines. It's it's a little scary and a little funny and sometimes absurd, but we do what we can, and just try and keep up and try and keep people out of trouble.
These are the times that we're living in.
Exactly. So like I said before, it's exciting and scary at the same time.
Well, I want to thank you, Casey, for joining the podcast. Where can people go to learn more about you or to connect with you?
Sure. Like you said, I am on Twitter all the time, at CLS Employer Law. So feel free to follow me. I'm on LinkedIn if you just want to search for my name. I also have a blog that I write, employers-lawyer.com. And of course, I write for Blogging for Jobs as well. So all those places are great to get in touch with me. And, feel free, like I said, to shoot me a tweet or comment on a blog post or whatever. I usually try to respond whenever possible.
Well, thank you everyone for joining the Workology podcast today, hosted by me, Blogging for Jobs, Jessica Miller-Merrill, where we discuss the science and art of the workplace, HR, and recruitment. Until next time, you can visit Blogging for Jobs to listen to all our past episodes of the Workology podcast. We'll talk to you guys later.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller-Merrill provided by Total Picture Media.